Hello there guys and welcome to Sunday's live stream. I'm JWF1 and we are here for the 55 lap Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam, and hopefully we'll be in for a very exciting race ahead. If you didn't see what happened in qualifying yesterday, it was very interesting, but in the end Lewis Hamilton took pole position from Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo. Fernando Alonso struggling in qualifying, they could only manage 10th place on the grid, and the two Dorado struggling down in 17th and 19th. So expect some fight backs from those three guys today, as we've got 55 laps of action coming your way here at Yeongam, and hopefully it'll be a good race here at the Korea International Circuit. So before we start then guys, let's mute this, turn this up a little, and let's have a look at the grid for the Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam. Here we go then. So on pole position is Lewis Hamilton with Sebastian Vettel in second. Daniel Ricciardo lines up in third with Nico Hülkenberg in fourth. The two Bud Light Motorsports lock out row 3 with Romain Grosjean 5th and Antonio Giovinazzi in 6th. Felipe Massa starts in 7th with Kimi Räikkönen in 8th position. Carlos Sainz Jr. very impressive 9th in the shadow. Fernando Alonso will a lot to do from 10th. 11th on the grid is Esteban Ocon, followed by Jean-Éric Vergne, his fellow compatriot, in 12th. Max Verstappen struggled yesterday and could only manage 13th. That's Charles Leclerc in 14th. 15th on the grid is Stoffel Vandoorne, followed by Brendon Hartley, who struggled in 16th. Then in 17th position, we have Sergio Pérez, followed by Pascal Wehrlein. Another struggling Dorado, that's Valtteri Bottas in 19th, with Kevin Magnussen in 20th. And on the back row of the grid is Ed Jones and Scott Dixon. And that is the grid for the Korean Grand Prix. So there is the grid then guys for the Korean Grand Prix, and the weather being bright and sunny. So leave your predictions, but without further ado, let's get to the first ever Korean Grand Prix. So here we are then on the grid then. It's Hamilton on the left of your screens, Vettel on the right, who's going to get the lead into turn 1 as we wait for the 5 red lights to go off to signify the start of the first ever Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam, right out at the Korea International Circuit. 1 light is on, 2 lights are on, 3 lights are on, 4 lights are on, 5 lights are on. And it is go here in Korea, and it's a good start from Hamilton, who's got a better start than Vettel has. A good start from Ricciardo, who looks like he's got the jump on Vettel as he made his way down towards turn 1. Can everybody keep it clean? Into the first corner, Hülkenberg looking to the inside of his own teammate, and the earmarks make contact, but luckily Vettel did not get tipped off there, but only a little bit of contact between the two EMRs as they went into the first corner there. And as everybody got through the first corner, okay, well, a little bit of argy-bargy going on, but everybody goes through okay. Hamilton leads Ricciardo, though, tucked up behind him in second place as they make their way now then up towards the hairpin. Ricciardo not close enough for a mover's meantime. Giovinazzi has a look to the inside of Sebastian Vettel. Can he get fourth from the German as it goes side by side through the hairpin? Vettel trying to stick with him now as it goes down towards the support pit straight now then for the first time today. Everybody just trying to find their way through at the moment as Vettel and Giovinazzi go side by side up towards the bus stop now then. Side by side they go. Can Vettel try and hold on to the position as they go into the chicane now then? Räikkönen looking on as well to see if he can try and get anything, but Gio just has the edge and gets hold of 4th place from Vettel. Having taken that, Vettel again hanging it around the outside round the right-hander. Giovinazzi trying to stick with him round this corner. They're still side by side coming out of the bus stop as they go up the hill, but Giovinazzi finally gets the edge and holds on to 4th place. Had a good start from Sainz to get up into the points. Not a good start from Alonso. He's down to 11th place. He loses the place at the start. Bottas and Pérez make gains off the start as well, so they're making their way up through the field as they make their way round the right-hander now. They're for the first time today in towards the double left-hander on the track we go. Hamilton now then trying his best to get hold of Ricciardo now. Ricciardo trying to get hold of Hamilton, I should say. Hamilton trying to fend off his future teammate from next season as they make their way around the left-hander. Hulkenberg keeping touching distance at this stage as Giovinazzi looks to be holding up a train at the moment. Position of Vettel, Räikkönen, Grosjean, in fact the whole pack, I should say at this point. As now they make their way around the right-hander. Sorry for the drop of frames. As now we make their way in towards the left-hander on the track, and as you can see, Hamilton starting to build up a gap a little bit. So at the end of that 1 of 55 here at Yeongam is Hamilton who leads, Ricciardo 2nd, followed by Hülkenberg in 3rd, and it's Giovinazzi 4th, Vettel 5th, Räikkönen 6th, Grosjean 7th, and Sainz who rounds out the top 8 at this stage of the race. Alonso trying to make his way up through the field. He's not close enough to get to Ocon at this stage of the race as they make their way into turn 1. Hamilton sets it early fastest lap as Ocon tries to dive it down the inside of Massa, but Massa having none of it as he holds on to the place. Vandoorne on the back of Alonso. A little bit of locking up going on, like one of the Dorados locked up into turn 1 there. I'm not quite sure which one it was. It was either Pérez or Bottas, that's for sure. As they all go up towards the hairpin now then. Meantime, Vettel starting to drop back from Giovinazzi at this stage, as Giovinazzi tries to chase down Hülkenberg for 3rd place if he can. As they all come out the hairpin, we'll have a quick look now then and see what the fuel loads consist of then. So, we have 12.5 for Hamilton, 11.5 for Ricciardo, 10.5 for Hülkenberg, 10.5 for Giovinazzi, sorry for the drop of frames, 12.5, 12.5, 12.5, 10.5, Mata 11.5 at the moment. I'm going to try and adjust the settings a little bit from the bit rate, because it seems to be losing frames quite a lot, it seems. So I'm going to try and drop it a little bit. So there we are. So 11.5, 11.5, 10.4, 10.4, 12.4, 11.4, 12.4, 10.4, 11.4, 10.4, 10.4, 12.4, 11.5 and 10.5. And there were still some drops of frames there and a few more as well. As they make their way around the right hand, and now then Hamilton continuing to lead the way out in front of Ricciardo at this stage of the Grand Prix, as now they make their way up through the corners, and we're still dropping frames. I am fearing for the worst now at this stage. I've tried to drop the frames, but nothing appears to be working at this stage, and that's that really as far as they're concerned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try and switch to 2G, so it might go off a little bit, and see if that makes a difference. So it might go off a little bit, but just bear with me. Ricciardo currently 2nd, Hülkenberg 3rd, Giovinazzi 4th, Vettel 5th, Räikkönen in 6th, it's Grosjean 7th, and then Sainz in 8th position, Massa 9th, Ocon 10th. Not really much movement going on as we went off the air. It was only brief, of course, because I had to sort out that little problem, so more editing for me tonight, woohoo. As Hamilton and Ricciardo still keeping him honest at this stage of the race. Vettel, as mentioned a little earlier, starting to fall back from Giovinazzi. It looks like Räikkönen will want to give him a piece, wants to try and get hold of him if he can, as they make their way down the straight towards the bus stop chicane now they're on the track. And so Räikkönen now then looking to try and get into more places if he can. Räikkönen looking to try and pull away a little bit from Grosjean in the Drivers' Championship if he can. The pair of them fighting it out for 4th place, and I think the pair of them were tied coming into this race. Grosjean currently behind him on the track at the moment. The gap will probably be 1 point between them if it remains like this, but we've still got the pit stop stages to still contend with at the moment at this stage, as they make their way down towards the right and left-hander. And Räikkönen now then doing all he can to get hold of Vettel in front of him at the moment. And so now in towards the right-hander we go. And Räikkönen now then doing whatever we can to try and get hold of Vettel in front of the moment. And at this stage of the moment, Hamilton continues to lead the way out in front of the moment. I'll be interested to see what the gap is like between him and Ricciardo. It looks like he's stretching it just a tad bit more at this stage of the race. And in terms of the first round of stops, because it does look like it's going to be a 2-stop race here at Yeongam, I expect the pit stops to come around about, I'd say lap 12 to 20. We'll probably see people darting into the pits. And now Hamilton will approach the first 2 turns on the track as he makes his way around turn 1 and turn 2. As they come off the turn now, they're heading down the long straight before approaching the hairpin. And so up towards the hairpin now then will go Lewis Hamilton. And as he tries to get hold of Ricciardo in front of him at the moment, up towards the hairpin we go. And so at the moment Hamilton's still leading the way. Ricciardo in 2nd, followed by Hülkenberg 3rd, Giovinazzi 4th, Vettel 5th, Räikkönen 6th, Grosjean 7th, Sainz in 8th, Massa, Ocon and Alonso look like they're scrapping it out for 9th place at this stage. Alonso not really making any movements at the moment, and this is not good for Alonso at the moment, because if it stays like this, the gap between Hamilton and Alonso will be up to 23 points, and as a result it will mean that Hamilton will have a golden opportunity to take the championship next week at Fuji. So Alonso's got to make some progress up through the field if he wants to keep his chances of a 4th World Championship alive in his final season, as they make their way round the bus stop now then on the track. Verstappen not really making progress at the moment. He's still stuck behind Vandoorne at this stage. Seems that people are stuck behind each other at this stage, probably just taking it easy through these first few laps of the race, as they all make their way up the hill towards the flat out right and left-hander. As Verne's all the way down in 22nd, so something's happened to the Frenchman. So whatever's happened to him, he's now down in last place, and he's going to have to make some progress through the field himself. So he just comes out of the chicane himself. Here's Hamilton still leading the way at the moment. Giovinazzi still trying to close up onto Hülkenberg. He's continuing to get away from Vettel, but I'll be very interested to see what the gap is like between the pair of them at this stage. We'll have a look on this current lap as Gio makes his way around this left-hander and then in towards the final 3 corners on the track. Then we go, and let's see then what the gap is like between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi on this lap as I go down the pit straight towards the first 2 turns on the track. And the gap between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi is now, let's have a look, the gap being 1.9 seconds. That's how it looks. So it's under 2 seconds between the pair of them at this stage. And we'll look to see if Gio is actually gaining a little bit more to Hülkenberg next time around, as Hülkenberg now makes his way up towards the hairpin. And now round the right-hander he goes as we go down the straight towards the chicane. And Hülkenberg now then trying to get hold of Ricciardo now then for second place as he makes his way around the left-hander and then into the right and left he'll soon go. And Hülkenberg now then trying to get hold of him in front. Round the left-hander he goes, and he'll go up the hill towards the flat-out right and left-hander on the track. So up the hill he goes now then. Round towards right and left he goes. And Hülkenberg still trying to even close back up to Ricciardo, but it seems that Gio might be starting to lap him a little bit quicker than him at this stage of the Grand Prix. And they make their way now then in towards the double left-hander on the track. Hülkenberg just keeping himself, just trying to keep a distance at the moment at this stage as he makes his way out of the turn. Approaching the left-hander we go. And then in towards the final few turns, and we'll see in a little bit what the gap is like between Gio and Hülkenberg on this lap, as they will come up to in a little bit. Round the left-hander goes Giovinazzi as he now comes out the turn heading around the right-hander and then heading down the long straight. Let's see the gap then between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi this time by. In a few laps we should see the first round of stops getting underway in towards turns 1 and 2, and let's see what the gap is going to be like. It was 1.9 last time around. The gap now between them is, let's have a look, 1.9 still. So they're both lapping around about the same pace as each other at this stage of the race. Ocon still stuck behind Massa at the moment. And looks like Massa's got a little bit more extra traction coming off that turn as they come down the long straight. And Ocon get up close to the back of Massa. It doesn't look like he's close enough to get hold of him at this stage. He's closing him in just a little bit, but still just doesn't have enough momentum to get hold of him at this stage as they now come up towards the hairpin. And out the turn we go. And Ocon doing whatever he can to get Massa, but at the moment it just seems that nothing is going his way at this stage. As they make their way up towards the bus stop now then, Ocon around the left-hander he goes, trying to close up into the braking zone compared to Massa. And around they go. Sainz looking good in 8th place. Alonso looking at any opportunity to bounce upon. He's got to make some progress, otherwise the gap will be up to 23 points between himself and Hamilton currently leading the race, and as a result it would give Hamilton a huge opportunity to win the Drivers' Championship next weekend at Fuji. So round the left-hander then goes Ocon, as now coming off the turn up towards the right-hander. Ocon definitely had a lot more traction coming out of there compared to Massa, and he definitely seems to be lapping quicker, but he just doesn't seem to have the momentum to try and get hold of Felipe at this stage of the race. Through the double left-hander we go before approaching the end of sector 2. Around the right-hander we go, using the curb on the outside as they now flick the car around the left-hander down then and up towards the final 4 turns we will go. And Hamilton now then sets another fastest lap of 142.579. So at the moment he's holding on to the fastest lap of the race. And let's see, can Ocon try and get a run on Massa coming around these final few turns. Around the right-hander we go, and then into this quick left-hander. Can Ocon try and get the slipstream on Felipe Massa? Again, it doesn't appear like he's close enough to get hold of him at this stage. Although saying that, Massa goes very defensive into turn 1, possibly feeling the pressure of Ocon behind him now then. Around turn 2 again, Massa just has enough traction to come off that turn and to just stay in front of Ocon at this stage now then, heading down the straight towards the hairpin. And Ocon just not close enough to get hold of Massa at this stage, and just has to hang back behind him at the moment as they make their way round the right-hander. And heading down the straight we go. Ocon not close enough to Massa still, and probably getting a little bit frustrated being stuck behind the Brazilian at this stage of the Grand Prix. As now they make their way round the left-hander and then up towards the right-hander we will go. And so Ocon probably getting frustrated being stuck behind Massa at this stage of the Grand Prix at the moment. Giovinazzi not really gleaning onto Hülkenberg as much as he would have anticipated. He might have cut the gap a little bit, but he's still not within the slipstream of Nico Hülkenberg at this stage. So far he's finding himself in an EMR sandwich, so it's not going to help him out having one in front of him and one behind him. Remember, Bud Light Lime, El Dorado, and you could say Suomi as well in a big scrap for second in the Constructors' Championship. And so far it looks like EMR will extend that gap a little bit more in that battle if it remains like this, as now they make their way around the final few turns. The gap between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi, last time we checked on them, the gap was 1.9 seconds. Has that decreased or increased, or has it remained the same from the last couple of laps? As Hamilton sets another fastest lap, another 1:42 lap he just did there. As Gio makes his way into turn 1, the gap between him and Hülkenberg is now, let's have a look, around turns 1 and 2, and it is, let's have a look, 2 seconds. So from the last time, Hülkenberg is up the pace by 1/10 of a second. So Hülkenberg is starting to lap a little bit quicker than Giovinazzi at this stage of the race. Ricciardo still keeping within touching distance of his future teammate for next season, but at the moment just doesn't seem to be able to challenge him at the moment. Hamilton's got that one under control at this stage, as they now make their way up towards the bus stop chicane. Ricciardo's still got a big enough gap in front of Hülkenberg at this stage of the Grand Prix to keep him back for the moment, but he was expecting possibly a little bit more out of him at this stage. Around the left-hander he goes as they come off the turn, heading up the hill towards the up towards these next few corners on the track, around the right and left-hander. And Ricciardo now then, spark coming off the back of his GRM. He's probably looking at the pit stop stages perhaps to try and gain a little bit onto Lewis Hamilton at this stage of the Grand Prix, as now they make their way through the double left-hander on the track. There's Hamilton still continuing to lead the way out in front at this stage, and then up towards the left-hander we go, and in towards the final 5 turns we will go, and through the left-hander now then, through this left-hander, and then into the final 3 turns on the track. And let's see what the gap is like anyway between Ricciardo and Hamilton at this stage of the race as they make their way down the pit straight. Hamilton now on lap 9 of 55, so including the lap he's on, as he sets another fast lap of 1:42.414 at this stage. How many laps he's got to go left? He's now got let's have a look. He's now got 47 laps remaining in the race. 2.4 seconds the gap between Hamilton and Ricciardo at the moment. So that's how that currently looks at this stage. Meantime, Massa again having to go a bit defensive because he can still feel the pressure from Esteban Ocon's Martini. But at the moment, he's done a good job defending him off. As you can see, it looks like Massa has a lot more momentum coming into turn 2 than what Ocon has in the Martini. Ocon just unable to get a good enough traction coming out of turn 2 to put an attack on the Brazilian at this stage. And now up towards the hairpin we will go. Just missing the curb on the right hand side, and Ocon is still struggling to make some progress. Alonso getting away from Vandoorne. Vandoorne probably having to hold up a train a little bit. As meantime, Verne has made some progress. He's up to 21st, but having saying that, of course, Jones having none of it. He's trying to get the place back, trying to break a little bit later into the hairpin, but Verne having none of it, and Verne holds on to 21st. Verne trying to make his way up through the field after mysteriously going off the radar, it appears. As Hamilton now then going around the double left-hander and using the curb on the outside in towards this next left-hander before approaching the final 5 turns. And Hamilton continuing to lead the way at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of laps time we will see, probably in a few laps time, we'll see the first round of stops getting underway here at Yeongam. As Hamilton now then starts lap 10 of 55 here at Yeongam. 46 laps remaining for the Drivers' Championship leader. Another fastest lap being set by Hamilton, but then it gets snatched by Ricciardo, who does a 1:42.311. So Ricciardo starting to respond, and the gap between them was 2.4 last time. Has he cut the gap as a result of setting the fastest lap? No, he hasn't. The gap remaining the same. So both lapping relatively similar pace to keep it to 2.4 seconds at this stage of the race. as Giovinazzi is 2.1 back, and in fact he's pitting at the end of this lap. So he lost a little bit more time to Hülkenberg on that lap. Hülkenberg opening up the gap by another 10th, but Giovinazzi is pitting at the end of this lap for his scheduled stop of the race, as he now makes his way up towards the hairpin. Round the right hander he goes as he comes off the turn, heading up towards the bus stop chicane. And Giovinazzi looking to put more pressure on Hülkenberg at this stage of the race as they make their way round the left, right and left-hander we will go. And after this race, of course, I did mention this a couple of weekends ago while we've got a little bit of time on our hands. I did mention a couple of weeks ago, for anybody who hasn't confirmed engine suppliers or drivers for next season, for the upcoming season for IFMC IndyCar, I will start to get a little bit pushy with you after this weekend, of course, because I need to get them done so I can get it all prepared for the upcoming season, which starts in August with pre-season testing at the road course of the Daytona International Speedway. So that's that. As now Giovinazzi, as we just said a little earlier, is coming into the pits this lap. Anybody in front of him also pitting? Yes, Hülkenberg is as well, and Alonso will be as well. So Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi will be pitting. It will be a battle between the EMR and Bud Light Lime mechanics then as a result. As around the final few turns will go Hülkenberg, he will flick to the right as Hamilton sets the fastest lap of 1:42.24, so snatch the fastest lap back off Ricciardo. As now Hülkenberg comes into the pits for his scheduled stop. I don't know if it said there Ricciardo sat it back or if it was still Hamilton's name, I'm not 100% sure. As into the pits comes Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi. They will also be joined by Alonso in a little bit as he tries to make his way up through the field and leapfrog Massa and Ocon in front to try and ensure he doesn't lose too much time in front, as we've got a fresh set of tyres and fuel. There's Alonso as he'll pull into the first box, or is that in fact Leclerc? In fact, Hülkenberg finishes his stop, no hold-ups, he's still in front of Antonio Giovinazzi, who's just finished his pit stop. I don't know if he got a little bit held up there then, but both Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi finish off their pit stop. Let's see where they're going to be joining after the pit stop, as they flick off the pit limiter, heading in towards the left hand to come out the pits, and Hülkenberg rejoins in 12th position. That's where he rejoins. Antonio Giovinazzi 13th, just in front of Dixon, who has got Verne all over the backside of him. Carlos Sainz it was, not Leclerc, has just come into the pits. Verne trying to chase down the Porsche powered Mars car of Scott Dixon to try and get a place. Hartley's just come into the pits and Dixon goes defensive just in case, but Verne wasn't close enough. Alonso finishes his stop, he rejoins 17th. Vandoorne also did his stop, he rejoins 18th. 19th for Bottas. Hartley finishes his pit stop, as does Magnussen and Jones. So a few guys came in on that lap. Daniel Ricciardo is pitting at the end of this lap for a scheduled stop, so he'll look to try and get close to Hamilton. Hamilton doing another lap, it seems, out on track and probably pit on the next lap. So Ricciardo probably won't have only one lap to try and gain a little bit of time to Lewis Hamilton if he can, as they make their way round the left-hander now, then up towards the final three turns we go on the track. Around the right-hander, and Ricciardo will peel in, which he does. Into the pit lane comes Daniel Ricciardo from second place, and he'll soon flick off the pit limiter. And they are the GRM mechanics. Hamilton has stayed out for, we think, an extra lap, as Ricciardo pulls into his box to put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. A clean wipe of the visor there from the GRM mechanics, and let's see where Ricciardo is going to rejoin then after the stop, as it looks like Monster are getting ready for, I think, Massa, and Ricciardo able to get out before Massa came into the pits there. Martini getting ready, I think, for Ocon, so it looks like it's going to be a battle between Massa and Ocon in the pits. Yes, they're both in, as Ricciardo comes out and rejoins. Where's he going to rejoin? There is Pérez, I think. Can he get out in front of Pérez? Well, he had to give him a little bit of space there, and Ricciardo had to go on the AstroTurf, which will cost him a little bit of time, and that's to rejoin 7th behind Pérez, but he's still in front of Hülkenberg, so that's important. Massa still out in front of Ocon. Ocon just didn't have a response to Massa in the pits there, as they will come out of the pit lane, and let's see where Massa rejoins then. As they make their way around the left-hander, Massa rejoins in 12th position, and Ocon will be 13th out on track, still in front of Alonso, who's still behind those guys, so probably more frustration for Fernando Alonso, it appears, as Leclerc rejoins 17th just behind Bottas, but looks like he's going to try and get a run on him down this long straight now. Then in the slipstream he goes, he's going to look to the outside of his future teammate Valtteri Bottas as they go down the straight. Looks like Bottas has just got enough momentum and holds on to the place for the moment, but will Leclerc actually try and get him? It's still a long straight, of course, but Bottas covers him off and holds on to 16th place as a result. And there are the two Mars Grand Prix cars at the back. It looks like Dixon managed to get the jump on Jones at the start. Into the pits then comes race leader Lewis Hamilton. And that's that really. And as you can see, Hamilton now then in his box. And as you can see, let's see how quick he's going to be after his stop. And sorry about that. And as you can see, Hamilton being held up in the pits because a lot of cars have come in. This could help Ricciardo out very heavily indeed. Ricciardo could actually try and get the jump on Vettel, on Hamilton there, but whereabouts is he? I don't know, of course. Whereabouts is Ricciardo? Ricciardo's coming down the pit straight. I think Hamilton will still be out in front then. But let's see. No, there's Ricciardo. Look, it's going to be close. Ricciardo on the inside of Lewis Hamilton. And as a result, Ricciardo has got the lead from Lewis Hamilton. Ricciardo leads at Korea. Hamilton severely held up in the pits. And Ricciardo gets the jump on Lewis Hamilton. And, well, Vettel finishes his stop. He's 5th. Räikkönen still 6th after the stop. It's going to be 7th still for Grosjean. He's still going to be out in front of Carlos Sainz Jr. As Verstappen has had a good stop as well. It looks like he's going to get out in front of Alonso. So Alonso loses another place. So Verstappen up to 11th gets the jump on Alonso and Vandoorne as well. Pérez comes out. Looked like there was a lock-up, I think, either from him or Vandoorne. And he rejoins 14th on the road. So, yeah, Ricciardo now leads the Grand Prix, but he'll have a lot of pressure from Hamilton, that's for sure. Hamilton's still sticking with him, so we have a battle for the lead, it seems, between Ricciardo and Hamilton as a result, as they make their way out of the chicane now. Then Verstappen, confirmation that he's just been into the pits, as is Pérez, and they're just listing the names that have just been in. But Ricciardo now leads the Grand Prix, and as a result, the gap will be 21 points if he stays like this between Alonso and Hamilton. Hamilton will still have a golden opportunity to take the title at Fuji next weekend. So, but we'll have to wait and see. But Ricciardo has jumped Hamilton in the pits as a result of Hamilton being held up by the likes of Vettel. I think Grosjean as well. A few cars, but Ricciardo leads. But Hamilton on the back of him again and looking to try and get the place back off his future teammate Daniel Ricciardo. As now in towards the right-hander we go, and Hamilton trying to get within the braking of Ricciardo. In towards the 4th to last corner we go, as they make their way in towards the final 3 turns around the left, and then through this long right-hander. Will Hamilton try and get a run on Ricciardo down the pit straight now? Then we ride on board with the championship leader as they come down the pit straight. He looks to be in the slipstream, but again not close enough to get Ricciardo. Ricciardo able to stay in front for the time being, as now they make their way around turns 1 and 2 on the track. Ricciardo's won the last 2 races, of course, and so far he's been on a little bit of a run, it must be said. But it looks like he's got a little bit more competition in the form of Hamilton. Hamilton down this long straight, again, doesn't seem to be close enough to get to Ricciardo. He is closing, but just not enough for him to get the place off Ricciardo at this stage. Tries to break that a little bit later than Ricciardo into the hairpin there. And Ricciardo's still in the lead of the race at this stage, holding on to Lewis Hamilton. As now they will go up towards the left bus stop chicane on the track. Around we go then, around the left-handed hairpin. And Hamilton looking to try and get the place back off Ricciardo if he can. Around the section of corners we go, as Hamilton tries to break that a little bit later than Ricciardo on the track. Up the hill they go then towards the flat-out right and left-hander. And around we go then through the right, then the left, and then up towards the quick left-right chicane we will go on the track. Out of the turn we go up towards the right-hander. And Hamilton comes off the turn using the curb on the outside as he'll now approach the double left-hander, trying to get up close to Ricciardo if he can. And Ricciardo looking at possibly 3 wins in a row if he can. And Hamilton off the turn he goes, trying to get hold of Ricciardo if he can. Out of the left-hander we go up towards the final few turns we will go on the track. And up towards the left-hander now then goes Hamilton. And Hamilton trying everything he can to get hold of Danny Rick at this stage as he tries to get hold of the Aussie at this stage of the race. Around the final turn and onto the pit straight we will go. And Hülkenberg not that far back either, but again Hamilton just not close enough to get Ricciardo at this stage of the race now then. As now they come out of turns 1 and 2 on the track. And they'll come down the straight now then. Hamilton just not close enough at the moment. 0.8 seconds is the gap between Ricciardo and Hamilton at this stage of the race. Ricciardo, I don't know if he's starting to stretch the gap a little bit, but Hamilton just trying everything to get hold of his future teammate in front of him at the moment. And so far Ricciardo just holding off the championship leader at this stage of the race, as Sainz in 8th at the moment might come under threat from Massa, who's now starting to leave a gap between himself and Ocon. Ocon might have to fend off from Verstappen in a little bit, his teammate, as they make their way up towards the hairpin. On the track now then, Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage, as he starts to try and get away now from Lewis Hamilton as a result. So taking advantage of the fact that Hamilton just struggling to find a way through on Ricciardo at this stage. So Ricciardo starting to try and open up a gap on in front at the moment as he looks for win a third consecutive victory at this stage now. Then, as mentioned a little bit earlier, Ricciardo seems to be on a roll at the moment when it comes to winning races, and it looks like he could even get a victory here at Korea if he can just keep this up. But I think they've still got to do a second stop. Yes, they have to. They're still yet to do another stop in this Grand Prix, so it could all still change. Ricciardo still could get held up by traffic in the pits, but Ricciardo just got to keep his nerve at the moment. He's got a little bit more of a fight on his hands, to put it this way, because he's got an Etihad all over the back of him, a car that he'll be driving next season, of course, in the form of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton will try and everything he can to try and pile the pressure on him again, and to try and get that lead back if he can. Out of the final turn and onto the pit straight we will go, and let's see the gap this time by between Hamilton and Ricciardo as they now make their way into turns 1 and 2 on the track. And the gap being, let's have a look, let's see, 1.4 seconds. So in fact, Ricciardo has opened up the gap from last time around to 0.6 of a second. So he's doing a good job, it must be said, to take advantage of this at the moment and to just stretch that lead out just a tad bit more. It seems that people have been struggling to overtake around here, which kind of surprises me in a way, because I thought there would have been quite a bit of overtaking around here today. Just for the fact that we've got 3 long straights which the drivers could take full advantage of, but clearly hasn't worked out at all this weekend, it must be said. And well, it kind of, you could say in a way, it kind of justifies why it's not on the calendar next season. But we obviously didn't know this at the time, that it was going to be like it, of course, because it was already confirmed Korea would not even be on the calendar next season in IFMC. But we didn't expect it to be a pretty much, to be quite honest, a bit of a ball fest. This race, it must be said, as Jones comes around turns 1 and 2 now then, and he's starting to lose time to teammate Dixon at the moment at this stage of the Grand Prix. Meantime, here's the top 2. Ricciardo continuing to stretch the gap out in front of the moment as he looks for his 3rd consecutive victory this season, of course, to give him up to win number 6 of his career. And Ricciardo, you can definitely tell why Etihad wanted him in the first place to replace Alonso in Season 5, because he's done. As you can see, these last 3 races have proved a point. Ricciardo, such a talent, and who knows, maybe he can win a championship in the future. We will obviously wait and see on that, as Ricciardo now then rounds the final 3 turns on the track now then, as they make their way down the pit straight towards the first 2 turns on the track now then. We ride on board with Danny Rick as he makes his way into turn 1 on the track. Through they go then, through turn 1 and then into turn 2 we will now go. And Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage. And so Ricciardo now then goes up towards the hairpin on the track. And that's that really, as Giovinazzi currently 4th at this stage at the moment. And looks like he's continuing to lose time a bit now to Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg just running his own race, it appears, in 3rd place at the moment in the EMR. And looking to try and chase down the top 2 if he can. And they come out of the hairpin now then. Gio looking to try and pick up some points if he can for Bud Light Lime in this race. Meantime, Verstappen currently 11th, trying to hunt down Ocon for 10th. Alonso not that far back either in the Etihad, but it looks like at this stage, if he can't make his way up through the field, it's going to be no points for Fernando Alonso. And you could say that his championship could be slipping away from him at this stage. Because, as mentioned a little earlier, if it stays like this now, the gap will be 21 points between Hamilton and Alonso, with Hamilton having a slight opportunity to try and grab the championship at Fuji next weekend. An opportunity to do that, of course, And so that's pretty much that then, really. So Alonso really needs to try and get his foot down if he wants to try and ensure he can get his 4th World Championship this season before he jets off to IndyCar during the off season. Well, that will be that then, really, as Alonso now then will approach the final turn on the track. And sorry, not the final turn, around that right-hander. And currently in 12th position at this stage is Fernando Alonso. Meantime, what's the gap between Hamilton and Ricciardo in front of the moment? We're now on lap 18 of 55 in this Korean Grand Prix. So we now have specifically, we now have, I think if I'm correct, it is 38 laps to go in this Grand Prix. So 38 laps remaining. We're still yet to get to the second round of stops. I think that said it was still around about 1.4 or 1.6 there between Hamilton and Ricciardo that time by. So Ricciardo's still open up the gap as out goes Brendan Hartley. Brendan Hartley out of the race, the first retirement. What has happened to Brendan Hartley in the monster car? Let's try and find him on the track. Whereabouts is he? And there he is. And he seems to have gone off, and he's just not got enough. Just hasn't got enough turning. Got enough turning circle, and as a result he smashed it into the wall. Brendan Hartley is out of the Grand Prix. Let's see if he just went wide into the corner, and yeah, it was just his pure error. He went for a spin at the left-hander and just did not get enough steering input, and as a result smacked it into the wall, and as a result Brendan Hartley is out of the Grand Prix, and we're now down to 21 runners here at Korea. So race over for the Season 3 IFMC GP2 champion Brendan Hartley. And who knows what his future lies, considering that he will not be with Monster Grand Prix next season when the team becomes British Airways Racing in season number 5. So that will be that, really. And it'd be very interesting to see where Hartley could try and get. If push comes to shove, he might have to look down in GP3 to see if there's any opportunities going down there at the moment, if he can't seem to get a drive in the top class. So that'll be that then, really, unless he could try and look for a testing role somewhere in the top class. That might be another opportunity there, but it seems that he's running out of options to be in the top class next season. There's only 3 seats still up for grabs in the form of Bud Light Lime, Suomi and Mars Grand Prix. And we believe that Grosjean's probably going to stay on at Bud Light Lime for next season. And we would presume that possibly Suomi are looking elsewhere other than Brendan Hartley for next season. So Mars could try and snap him up, but they could end up with having Joseph Newgarden for next season. So it's all swings and roundabouts, as Team Bots Oliver Glazebrook would probably put it. But it'll be very interesting to see what Hartley's future lies in for next season in IFMC. And hopefully he can find a drive somewhere next season. Meantime, lap 19 now then. We are now on the gap between Ricciardo and Hamilton in this race as they make their way round turn 2 is 2 seconds. So it's 2 seconds exactly between the pair of them. Ricciardo continuing to up the gap and in front of the field at this stage. And Ricciardo, as mentioned, just on a roll recently, it must be saying, towards this back end of the season. This was kind of where GRM started to pick up pace last season as well. It seems they've got more pace this season than they had compared to last season. So it seems to be a step up, but GRM really need to try and get their consistency for next season, of course. I mean, they'll have 2 new drivers next season in the form of Power and Ocon. Brand new lineup for them, and they'll be hoping... excuse me. They'll be hoping... I had a little bit more of a cough there. They'll be hoping to try and try and see if they can try and get some consistency on board, and considering with the new V12s next season, they'll be hoping to try and take advantage of those new regulations for next season, which hope to try and change the pecking order around. Etihad, of course, recently came out and said recently that they're not going to be revealing plans of what their engine is going to be for next season until the end of the season. But from the way they spoke, it is looking more likely that they're going to retain BMW for next season. And but it's unknown how many seasons they're going to hold on for. So clearly, they're hoping that they can try and get, even if these new regulations might change the pecking order around, they could still hope to try and get BMW up to some form of good pace next season, and still maybe have a car up to winning scratch for next season. But who knows really what these new regulations could cope with, and who knows what the pecking order may look like for next season. It really all depends really on what's going to happen for next season. And but from the way Etihad spoke in their tweet on Twitter, it's looking more likely that the team is going to remain with BMW Power for next season. So it's pretty much no surprise really if that is the case. So that's that really, and it's kind of, as they go down the straight, there's still a little bit more questions about as well as about what engine supplier Martini will go for next season, because of course they're ditching Ferrari now. Mars will be having those engines for next season. It's very, very interested to see what they might go with. They could actually go with Audi power. They might return to Audi next season. Who knows? Now that AMP will be having Mercedes power in season 5. Who knows really? They could even try and bring back Renault if they can. They've been snooping around at other engines outside of what's currently in the pecking order at the moment. They could try and go with Porsche if they wanted to, but they could also look elsewhere at the likes of Renault. They might try and go with Cosworth, maybe. You know, maybe bring up a new engine that hasn't been in the series before, or maybe bring one back. Who knows really? They are looking elsewhere at the moment, not just what's currently in the pack at the moment. So it will be interesting to see what Martini goes with for next season, of course. Their aim is quite simple. They're going to try and see if they can go for a championship next season if they can. Now that they've finally got a legal car and they seem to be making progress, they want to try and go for a championship. Now we've got these new regulations coming in for next season. In fact, you have to say that all teams will be looking to try and get the championship next season with the new regs. But who knows really what it's going to be like for next season. All we know is you'll have to find out in season 5 what it's got to bring. And obviously the season starts, pre-season testing starts at the back end of November, with the season starting in December, of course. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in that regard. That will be that really as far as they're concerned. Ricciardo now then getting onto the race. We're now on lap 21 of 55 in this Grand Prix. So we now have specifically 35 laps remaining here at Yeongam. In a few laps time we should be seeing the second round of stops getting underway. And it's still 2 seconds the gap between Hamilton and Ricciardo. So they're both now lapping around about the same pace as each other. At this stage now then, as they make their way up towards the hairpin, we've already passed the 5 o'clock mark. In fact, we're coming up now 2 minutes towards the 5:15 mark. So that's that then really. Just under 3 hours away until the AOR race at Spielberg in Austria. So that'll be that. That'll be the last race until another week break, because of the fact that the majority of the drivers that are in AOR and some of the coordinators as well are going to be off to Silverstone, including my co-commentator Oliver Glazebrook. He will also be jetting off to Silverstone next week as well, only for the Sunday of course. And I know that a couple of you in the Twitch chat are going to Silverstone. I know that the Martini team boss Cameron Anderson is going, and I know that GOM team boss George Roke is going as well. I know those 3 are going to Silverstone. I know that I think Cameron's going for the full weekend from what I understand, and George, not 100% sure. I know that Ollie is only just going on the Sunday this season. But I don't know if anybody else is going within that as well. But IFMC will still be going ahead anyway. It's not like AOR, is it? Where it's online racing, and of course this usually takes place in the midday anyway, after the British Grand Prix, after a particular F1 Grand Prix. It's not an online race where you have to get there at a certain time, and plus you have to remember, of course, traffic's going to be a big thing around there at Silverstone. Trust me, I know what it's like trying to get out at Silverstone. MotoGP 2017 just struggled to get out of there really because of the heavy traffic, and I didn't get back home until around about 8 o'clock at night, around about 8:30 at night. So that was that really. Meantime, it's now up to 2.1 seconds between Ricciardo and Hamilton. So Ricciardo upping the gap to another 10th between the pair of them at this stage. Giovinazzi starting to fall back a little bit more from Nico Hülkenberg in this race. And that's that really as far as they're concerned. Everybody just seems to separate themselves out just a bit. There's John Vergne, who's managed to dispose of the 2 Mars Grand Prix cars, and now he's trying to chase down Kevin Magnussen for 18th place. This is probably the only decent battle that's possibly happening on the track at the moment. As Vergne now then makes his way around the final 3 turns on the track, around this left-hander, and then onto the pit straight we will go. And let's see the gap then between Magnussen and Vergne at this stage of the race. So they're both making their way down towards the first 2 turns on the track, and around turn 1 and then into turn 2. The gap 1.5 seconds between Magnussen and Vergne at this stage of the Grand Prix. And Vern, as mentioned, trying to make his way up through the field at this stage as they now make their way down the longest straight on the calendar. It's just slightly longer than the long straight we have at Abu Dhabi, so only just about as long as that. And into the hairpin we go. Vern now then still trying to get hold of Magnussen in front of him at this stage. As mentioned, the gap 1.5 seconds between the pair of them. What's the gap between these two at this stage? It does look like, in fact, it does look a tad bit closer than 2.1. I could be wrong on that, but I think from that angle it looked like it was just a little bit closer between Hamilton and Ricciardo that time by. But we'll have a look and see what the gap is like anyway as they make their way down the pit straight. One lap 23 now 55, so 33 laps remaining in the Grand Prix, and the gap between them is now, let's have a look, 2.2 seconds. In fact, I was wrong. It looks like Ricciardo's upped it by another tenth, so it's probably in that sector maybe that Hamilton is stronger than Ricciardo, but for the rest of the lap Ricciardo just has his number, it appears. So that's pretty much that then, really. Let's see if the gap between these two shrinks down in any way, shape or form. It was 1.5 seconds last lap around. We will see if Vern can cut that down a little bit more between himself and Kevin Magnussen at this stage of the Grand Prix as they make their way around the final few turns on the track. And let's see now, they're around the left and then in towards the final 3 turns. There goes Vern and Magnussen, and the gap between them is now, let's have a look as they come down the pit straight. It was 1.5 seconds previously. Let's see if that's been reduced, increased or remained the same in this lap now then as they go into turns 1 and 2 on the track. And the gap is still 1.5 seconds, so he's not really gaining onto him, is it? The gap still remaining the same between the pair of them at this stage. As mentioned, things starting to quiet down just a little bit in this Grand Prix. It's not been a very interesting race, if I'm honest with you. I do apologise for that. And Giovinazzi comes off the turn now then, coming up towards the double left-hander. And so now around the left and right-hander. And Giovinazzi now then will come up now then towards these final few turns on the track. As if you've only just joined us, guys, this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then, as Ricciardo now is about to start lap 24 of 55 of the race then. Ricciardo leads, Hamilton second, Hülkenberg in third, Giovinazzi fourth, Vettel fifth, Räikkönen sixth, Grosjean seventh, Sainz in eighth, Massa ninth, Ocon 10th, Verstappen 11th, Alonso 12th, Vandoorne 13th, Pérez 14th, Bottas 15th, Leclerc 16th, Verline 17th, Magnussen 18th, Vern 19th, Dixon 20th, Jones in 21st, and the only retirement being Brendan Hartley after he crashed out of the Grand Prix. Tried to rejoin and pretty much failed to rejoin because he did not put enough turning force on the car, and as a result smacked it into a wall where he ripped off his front left wheel in the process. So not good for him as far as he's concerned. We now look at the top 3 of Daniel Ricciardo, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Hülkenberg briefly there as he went down the support pit straight. Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage as he now makes his way around the right and then into the left-hander he goes. As now Ricciardo goes up the hill towards the flat-out right and left-hander. Round the right and then into the left-hander then goes Daniel Ricciardo as he now makes his way into these section of corners. And Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage, using all the curb on the outside before approaching the double left-hander. And through the left-right chicane we go, as Ricciardo uses the curb on the outside in towards this quick left-hander before approaching the final 5 turns on the track. And now in towards this left-hander we go. And Ricciardo now then just going around the final 3 turns, and let's see what the we'll have a look and see what the gap's like anyway between Hamilton and Ricciardo. Judging from their fuel load, it looks like in a couple of laps it looks like Hamilton will be the first to pit out of the top 2 at this stage, so it'd be very interesting to see if Hamilton could try and take advantage of that. The gap between them is now 2.2 seconds. That's how it looks. 2.2 seconds still the gap between them at this stage, so they've kept the same gap as it was from the last time we checked up on the gap between them. Here's Vettel, currently 5th at the moment, and he's had quite an unlucky season, it must be said. He just had more bad luck come his way, which is why you notice that Hülkenberg is currently beating him in the Drivers' Championship. And EMR, of course, retain their drivers for next season in the form of Vettel and Hülkenberg, so keeping the same driver lineup, and they'll be hoping to go for the Drivers' Championship next season. And they've definitely made strides this season, it must be said. A lot of people seem to doubt them in terms of switching to their Mercedes engine. They thought it would be a gamble for the team to go with that engine, and to be honest, I honestly thought for initially it would have been a gamble for them to go to the Mercedes power plant, but they've definitely made it work out to good effect. They've clearly made it work better than what Monster Grand Prix have in the past, and as a result, that's why the team is currently second in the Constructors' Championship, and look to open that up a little bit more between themselves and Dorado in that championship. But that line will also closing a little bit more to Dorado at this stage of the race, with them currently 4th and 7th at the moment. And so that will be that then, really, as far as they're concerned. Suomi will also gain a little bit onto Dorado as well, with Räikkönen currently in 6th place, only gaining 3 points though. So it looks like at this stage Suomi might need to worry a little bit about GRM at the moment in the Constructors' Championship, a rival of theirs from last season, where they just managed to grab 5th in the Constructors last season, thanks to that victory from Kimi Räikkönen and the result of GRM not getting any points that weekend. It looks like they're rekindling that rivalry, and it appears that GRM are starting to eat up in their lead in their battle for 5th in the Constructors' Championship. So GRM could finish quite high in the Constructors, as Hülkenberg is into the pits for his scheduled stop. So Hülkenberg the first to make his 2nd stop of the afternoon. In fact, it looks like maybe the rest of the pack are actually going with a free stop then. It appears. It looks like a majority of the field, the whole field, is going onto a free stop then, it appears. Because look, Hülkenberg's not taken that much fuel on. So it looks like the whole pack has gone for a free stop then here at Yeongam. So that's that really as far as they're concerned. As Hülkenberg now then finishes his stop, and he's going to rejoin in 10th position, just in front of Alonso, as Verstappen goes into the pits for Martini. And let's see if it's also a free stop for him. And yes, it is. He's also on the free stop. Vandoorne as well, who's also come in. Yep, these two are on free stop. So it looks like the whole pack has gone onto a free stop strategy in this Grand Prix. So very interesting strategy then from the whole pack as Verstappen finishes his pit stop. Let's see where he's going to rejoin in after the stop as he goes trundling down pit lane. And Verstappen will flick off the pit limiter, and he's going to rejoin in, it looks to be 17th place. So P17 for Verstappen. It looks like it's going to be 18th place for Vandoorne and 19th for Valtteri Bottas. So those guys have finished off their pit stop. Hamilton is pitting at the end of this lap then, so Lewis Hamilton will be pitting for his 2nd of 3 stops in the hopes of trying to gain onto Ricciardo if he can. Ricciardo will stay out for 1 or 2 more laps after Hamilton is pitted. In towards the left-hander then goes Lewis, as they now make their way into the final 3 turns on the track. And Hamilton will peel to the right, which he does. Into the pits then comes Lewis Hamilton from 2nd place in the hopes of trying to gain onto Ricciardo in this Grand Prix. And let's see how quick the stop's going to be then for Lewis as the mechanics get ready to serve his car. And he's got 17.9 litres in the tank. And let's see where the championship leader is going to rejoin then after this pit stop. And so that's that then really. And Hamilton finishes his stop, and let's see where he's going to rejoin then. As he goes trundling down pit lane, he'll soon flick off the pit limiter, and Hamilton is going to rejoin in 7th position, could be 8th actually. And out on the track he goes, and he rejoins 8th behind Felipe Massa. So out on the track he goes now then, as they go down the straight towards the hairpin on the track. And Hamilton 8th now then on the road. And that's that really as far as they're concerned. Daniel Ricciardo currently leading the way at this stage. And Leclerc now then into the pits. And Ricciardo not pitting. His teammate will be at this stage though. Leclerc into the pits. And he's been served. I think Pérez has just finished his pit stop in the Dorado. So he's finished off as they both come out the pit stop. And they'll come trundling down pit lane. And let's see where they're going to rejoin. And it's going to be 17th and 19th. I think they've just rejoined then. So that's that for him really. So P17 and P19 for Leclerc and Pérez. So that's where they rejoin then after the stop. As here is Daniel Ricciardo. And we'll have a look and see if he's going to be pitting next lap anyway. We know that his teammate is pitting at the end of this lap. But let's see, is Ricciardo pitting at the end of this lap? Nope, he's going to stay out for another lap. So looks like Ricciardo's going to be doing another lap of fuel burning before he has to make his pit stop as they go around turn 2 on the track. Ricciardo heads down the straight now then towards the hairpin. And Ricciardo now then up towards the right-handed hairpin he will go as he looks to try and get 3 out of 3 in a row in terms of victories. Into the hairpin he goes as Räikkönen now pits for Suomi. So Kimi Räikkönen in for his scheduled stop. Looks like Monster's getting ready for Massa, I think. So Massa will be coming in this time by as a wipe of the visor there for Kimi Räikkönen. And let's see where he's going to be joining after the stop. And let's see, it is a... Let's have a look and see. It's a 9.7 second stop for Kimi Räikkönen. And let's see where he's going to rejoin then. As he comes trundling down pit lane, Räikkönen is going to rejoin in 10th position, it seems. So P10 for Kimi Räikkönen after his second of 3 stops now then here at Yeongam. That is where he is going to rejoin. Massa, it was Massa, of course, who came in because Hartley out of the race a little earlier. Verne now into the pits for GRM and Massa rejoins in 13th position as Verstappen heads down towards turn 1, currently 14th at this stage. And Ricciardo now then looks like he might be pitting at the end of next lap. We'll wait and see as he now makes his way around the final few turns on the track, as he'll come up now then towards the left-hander. Dixon into the pits for Mars Grand Prix, so he's making his stop around the left and then through around the right-hander he will go. And now through the left he goes and he heads down the pit straight. And Ricciardo, let's see, is he going to be pitting at the end of lap 29 now then? And yes, he will be. Ricciardo is pitting at the end of this lap for his scheduled stop for fuel and tyres for his second. Sorry about that, as Giovinazzi is now into the pits, as is Sebastian Vettel. So those two are in the pit lane now then, and as you can see, Vettel in his box, as is Giovinazzi. As Giovinazzi finishes his box, his stop actually. Where's he going to rejoin after the stop? And he'll flick off the pit limiter, which he does. And where's he going to rejoin? There's Hülkenberg, and he's a little bit closer to Hülkenberg, I would think. Yeah, he's a little bit closer to Hülkenberg. He rejoins 5th on the road. Vettel is going to rejoin 6th, still in front of Räikkönen. Räikkönen is still nowhere near the German at this stage, or his Ferrari teammate in real life. Carlos Sainz Jr. finishes off his pit stop. And let's see where the Spaniard is going to rejoin, as Alonso is now into the pits. Alonso finishes his stop. There's Ocon, still behind Massa after the stop. Alonso, where's he going to rejoin? And there's Verstappen. It's going to be close between him and Verstappen. Verstappen looking at Alonso as they go down the inside of each other, and Verstappen just gets the jump on Alonso. So again, Alonso struggling and rejoins again down in 12th position. But in fact, Alonso's going to run on Verstappen. He's not going to let him go that easily. He's going to look to the outside of Max Verstappen. Side by side go Alonso and Verstappen as they go up towards the hairpin on the track now then. Has Alonso just got the edge on Verstappen as they go up now then towards the hairpin? Side by side they go. Verstappen on the inside, and Verstappen just holds on to 11 for the time being. So Verstappen holding on to Alonso for the moment in this race. And Grosjean search to make a stop into the pits. Then comes race leader Daniel Ricciardo. Let's see then where he's going to rejoin after the pit stop. So he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel onto the car. And we're now at the 5:30 mark. So we are 2.5 hours away from the AOR race at Austria. And it's a 10.3 second stop for Daniel Ricciardo. And where is Hamilton on the track? Hamilton's just coming around the final few turns. Ricciardo will still lead, but let's see if Hamilton can gain a little bit. Ricciardo comes out on the track. Grosjean also into the pits, and Ricciardo still with quite a healthy lead after his pit stop. And Hamilton still second. Here is Grosjean in the stop. Where's he going to rejoin as he makes his pit stop? And out of the pit lane then goes Romain Grosjean. And where is he going to rejoin? There's Vettel. Can he come out perhaps in that battle if he can? And it doesn't look like he's going to be out where they are, as Grosjean comes out of his box, and it looks like it's going to be still 7th for the Frenchman. So Grosjean rejoining in P7 at this stage of the race now then. So P7 for him. Meantime, Ocon all over the backside of Massa again. Massa going defensive into turn 1. So we've got a battle for ninth brewing again between Massa and Ocon through turn 2. We go on the track now then. Can Ocon get a run on Massa as he comes down the long straight? He's in the slipstream of Felipe Massa. Can he try and make a move into the hairpin now then? He tries to get up to the Brazilian if he can, but it looks like he just hasn't still got enough momentum to get him. Massa goes a tad bit defensive just in case, and he goes defensive into the corner, but will Ocon maybe try and punch a move perhaps into the bus stop chicane? As you can see, Ocon trying to get a run again on Felipe Massa, but again just doesn't appear to be close enough to him at this stage, and he's going to remain behind him as a result. And Ocon stays behind Massa for the moment in this race as they make their way around the bus stop chicane now then on the track. Round the left-hander we go, and Ocon still trying to put Massa under a little bit of pressure as Alonso's up to 11th on seen by the cameras. He's finally found a way through on Verstappen, so up to 11th goes Fernando Alonso as he tries to chase down the battle in Ocon and Massa if he can for 9th place to try and salvage something in this race. These two aren't that far behind Sainz either, so there's still chance for points for these guys at this stage if anything could happen to Sainz as well, as the pair of them make their way around the double left-hander. We still got one more stop to go. This is looking to be a 3-stop race around here at Yeongam, so looking to be quite interesting, it must be said. Round the left-hander we go. Ocon still trying to pile the pressure on Massa if he can. Round the right-hander, and then up towards the final 4 turns we will go on the track. And Ocon now then trying to size Massa up for a move. Round the left and then around the right-hander we go. Can Ocon try and get the momentum on Felipe Massa as he comes down the pit straight? Ocon in the slipstream of Massa now then. He tucks up into his slipstream. Massa going defensive now then. Will Ocon try and flick it to the inside into turn 1? No, he doesn't think about it. Remains single put behind the Brazilian. Out of turn 1 and then into turn 2 we go. This is where Massa is usually stronger. Ocon trying to get back in the slipstream now then of Felipe Massa as he comes down the long straight towards the hairpin now on the track where Button and Kobayashi collided in real life back in 2012. Up towards the hairpin, and Ocon again not close enough to get out of Massa at that point as they come down the straight towards the bus stop. Let's see if Ocon can try and find a way back past on Felipe Massa. There's Alonso trying to close back up to these two, so he's looking to try and gain some time onto this battle between Massa and Ocon. Through the bus stop chicane go the pair of them, through the left and then into the right-hander we will go as they flick their way round through these section of corners. Into the left-hander we go as they now make their way up the hill towards the flat-out right and left-hander. Now then down the hill we go towards the right and then into the left again, and Ocon doing whatever he can to get hold of them in front. Out of the turn up towards the right-hander we will go. So they come off the turn using the curb on the outside now. Then Ocon still trying to pressure the Brazilian veteran into some form of mistake. Around the left and then into the right-hander we will go on the track as they will now approach the next corner on the track. Around the left-hander using a little bit of the AstroTurf on the left-hand side. As you can see, Ocon a lot quicker than Massa around these section of corners as they make their way around the section of corners now. Then around the left and then into the right-hander now. Then around the final few turns we go, and then onto the pit straight. Will Ocon try and get a run on Massa? He doesn't look close enough at this stage to try and get all of Massa this time. Massa got enough of a gap in front to ensure he doesn't have to defend this time. Round turn 1 and then into turn 2 we will go. And again, Massa just has a lot more traction compared to Ocon, but it does look like Ocon is still within the slipstream now then of Felipe Massa. He's trying to get a run on the Brazilian, but again just not close enough to get hold of him at this stage as the pair of them continue to fight it out for 9th place in this Grand Prix. And that's that really. Down the support pit straight, there's Sainz and there's Alonso, not far behind these guys at the moment. Up towards the bus stop chicane we will go, and again Ocon just not close enough to get hold of Massa at this stage of the Grand Prix as they now make their way up towards the right and then into the left-hander we will go as they go up the hill towards the flat-out right and left-hander, and down towards these section of corners we go. Around the right and then into the left-hander we will go, and then in towards another left and then into a 90-degree right, out of the turn. Now they're up towards that 90-degree right. Ocon trying to break that a little bit later compared to Massa into that corner. As now they go up towards the double left-hander on the track. And let's see now then as Ocon trying to get within that slipstream again off Felipe Massa around the left-hander. Again, this is where Ocon is a little bit stronger than Massa. As now around the right-hander we go up towards the left as they come off the turn. And now out of the turn, now they're heading through towards the next section of corners we go, heading down the pit straight. Will Ocon get a run on Felipe Massa now as they make their way down the pit straight? And again, Ocon not close enough to try and pull a move on him into the first turn, despite trying to break a little bit later into turn 1 there then. Around turn 2, and again, momentum. Massa just has that a little bit more to carry than Felipe Massa. And so that's pretty much that for them really. Ricciardo still with a decent lead out in front of the moment from Lewis Hamilton, as we are currently on lap 33 of 55 in this Grand Prix. Ricciardo coming up to some traffic, so he's having to contend with a bit of traffic at the moment at this stage of the race. And so on lap 33 of 55 we have specifically trying to think off the top of my head, we now have 23 laps remaining in this Korean Grand Prix, and we're still yet to have a third stop to be complete at this stage. So that's that for them really. Meantime, back to Ocon and Massa. Looks like Massa's starting to pull a bit of a gap now between himself and Esteban Ocon in this race. So still looking like Massa's starting to open up the gap a little bit between himself and the Frenchman, as he looks to try and chase down Sainz for P8 now then in this race, as they make their way around the double left-hander on the track. Around the left and then into the right-hander we will go, as they use the curb on the outside around the left-hander before approaching the next few turns on the track. Around we go, and then we approach the fourth to last corner on the track around the left-hander, and then in towards the final 3 turns goes Ocon and Massa. And let's see if Ocon could try and get out of Massa at this point as they go down the pit straight on the track. And again, Ocon just not close enough to get out of Massa at this stage, and looks like Massa might have just got enough of a gap in front to get hold to keep that at this stage, to keep the place at the moment, as he tries to chase down Sainz for some points. Sainz looking to try and get Shadow's first points since I think Spain was the last time they got points, when Sainz had that brilliant weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix, his home event, where he nearly got a podium in that race but just missed out in the last couple of laps to Hamilton and Pérez. But it looks like he could be getting back to point scoring, about a point scoring finish in this Grand Prix, as long as he can just keep this up in 8th place and ensure nothing bad happens to him within the Grand Prix. I'm pretty sure he will be pretty alright. Ricciardo's just lapped Jones there, so he's lapped some traffic now then, as he'll come up towards the second Mars Grand Prix car in the form of Scott Dixon. And so through the final few turns then we go, and Ricciardo now then continuing to lead the way out in front, and he now starts lap 35 of 55, so 21 laps to go for Daniel Ricciardo. And that's that then, as they go through turn 2 and in down the long straight before approaching the hairpin. And meantime, Giovinazzi, in fact, he's not that far behind Hülkenberg, so it looks like Giovinazzi's starting to close the gap between himself and Nico Hülkenberg in this race. So it looks like we could have a scrap for third brewing in this Grand Prix. What's the gap between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi at this point now? Then the gap 2.2 seconds. That's how it currently looks at this stage. And meantime, Räikkönen trying to close over to Vettel if he can for 5th, but at the moment he's not really getting up to him as much as he would have anticipated at the moment in this Grand Prix, as they make their way down the straight. Then Giovinazzi still trying to get out of Hülkenberg if he can for 3rd, to try and get onto the podium if he can, but looks like Hülkenberg's still got it covered at the moment. And that's that really. And through the right and then into the left-hander we go, As you can just see there, Russia's actually gone through to the quarter-finals. Spain have been knocked out on penalties. So that's that for anybody wondering what's going on in the World Cup. Russia has just beat Spain on penalties. So up towards the right-hander we go. Giovinazzi still trying to get hold of Hülkenberg in front, and doing whatever it takes to get hold of the German at this stage through the right-hander, as Ricciardo continues to lead the way out in front at the moment. And are we interested to see, in fact, what's the gap between the pair of them as Ricciardo comes up to lap Dixon, as we have 20 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. What's the gap between Ricciardo and Hamilton at the moment through turn 2? And the gap being 4.9 seconds. So that's how much he's open after the second stop. So Ricciardo having a great race in the lead of the race. It's now Hamilton's coming up to the traffic himself as he now tries to lap Jones. Jones, I don't know what he was thinking there. I don't know if he was trying to defend, but I don't know if he was actually aware Hamilton was actually on the right hand side, but Hamilton gets through him either way. But that could have been a nasty crash if Jones caused an accident there with Lewis Hamilton. Luckily he didn't, but came close there as a result. So they make their way down the straight now then. Sebastian Vettel doing a good job fending off Räikkönen. And we didn't see, in fact, what the gap was like between Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg. It looks like Giovinazzi might be starting to reel in Hülkenberg again for third place. So this could be a scrap, it seems. And they now make their way up towards the bus stop chicane. And around the right-hander we go. And around we go now then into these section of corners. And around we go now then. Giovinazzi still wanting to get the podium of Hülkenberg if we can, looking to try and get some good points in the bag for BLLM, and they can, as they look to try and get second in the Constructors' Championship. And we'll have a look and see what the gap is like at the end of this lap, just to see what's going on between the pair of them at this stage. Around the right-hander we go, as they will soon approach the left-hander. Up towards the final few turns then we go, around the right and then into the left-hander we go. And we'll have a look and see the gap in a little bit. Around the final 3 turns then we go, and let's see the gap then between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi, this time by round the left-hander, heading down the pit straight. And the gap between them is now, let's have a look as they'll make their way down towards turns 1 and 2 on the track. Let's see now then, round turn 1 and then into turn 2 we will go, and the gap being 2.1 seconds. That's how that looks. 2.1 seconds is the gap between Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg, and we'll see if he's reducing that on the next lap to see if Gio is lapping quicker than Hülkenberg in front of him at the moment. We are 16 minutes away now then from the 6 o'clock mark, so just over 2.25 hours away from the AOR race at Austria, and hopefully we'll be commentating hopefully an exciting race there at Spielberg. And down towards the right-left chicane we will go on the track, and so we now make their way in towards the next chicane on the track now then. And now up towards the double left-hander. Ricciardo just continuing to just lead the way at the moment. We're still a few laps away from the third round of stop, so they'll be getting out of the way very soon. And Ricciardo now then round the section of corners as he continues to lead, quite a healthy lead in front of Lewis Hamilton as he looks for win number 6 of his career. And this is obviously the most GOM have ever got in a season, getting 3 victories. And George Rowe must be feeling like he's in a fantasy land, it must be said. Not to disphone him for saying the word fantasy land, it was the only thing I could think of off the top of my head there. But must be living in a dream world, I should say, with the fact that his driver, Daniel Ricciardo, has won the last 2 races and looking to make it 3 wins in a row if he can, because this will possibly be the perfect send-off that Daniel could give the team before he joins Etihad next season, replacing Alonso. So you can see in the background, Hamilton just put a lap there on Scott Dixon, so he was able to just lap him at last. As Ricciardo now then up towards the hairpin, as he continues to lead away in front. Out goes Sergio Pérez. Pérez is out of the race. It looks like he's retired down at the chicane, and there he is. And let's see what it was. And he's done the same thing as Hartley, just did not have enough steering input, and as a result, Sergio Pérez is out of the Korean Grand Prix, and we're down to 20 runners. As a result, Pérez's miserable race comes to an end, and it's Pérez who retires from the Grand Prix. There's your yellow flag, and it was down at the bus stop chicane where Pérez called it a day here at Yeongam, as they make their way around the bus stop chicane. Round the right and then into the left-hander we will go, as Ricciardo continues to lead the way out in front. As we're getting close now to the third stop window in a few laps' time, as they make their way around the quick flat-out left and right and left-hander. And we didn't actually see what the gap was like last time around between Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg. We will keep an eye on them now then and see what the gap is like on this at the end of this particular lap. As they go around the flat-out right and left-hander we go, and then in towards the these next section of corners we will go up towards the 90-degree right-hander, as Giovinazzi uses all the curb on the outside now. Then in towards the double left-hander, around the left and then into the right-hander again, and Gio losing the curb on the outside round the left-hander before approaching the final few turns. And we'll have a look and see what the gap is like this time by between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi. Around these final few turns then we go around the left and then into the right-hander we will go, and the gap between Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi is now, let's have a look, as Ricciardo's now on lap 39 and 55. So we're now on specifically, we now have specifically I think 17 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. I think 18 laps remaining. I think it's actually 18 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. 2.1 seconds, so still 2.1. So Giovinazzi not really gaining much onto Hülkenberg at this stage, and it looks like they're just trying to keep the gaps consistent at this stage, and maybe just try and run it up until the third round of stops, perhaps. And to see if they can try and do something as they now head down towards the flat out right and left-hander now then, as now they make their way into these section of corners before approaching the right-hander, as Ricciardo uses a little bit of the curb on the outside as he continues to stretch his lead a little bit in front of Lewis Hamilton, as he now makes his way around the left and right-hander, using the curb on the outside and towards these next section of corners we go. And around the last few turns we will go, as Ricciardo now then goes around the left-hander, using a little bit of AstroTurf on the left-hand side. Around the final few turns as Ricciardo starts lap 40 of 55. So in fact we have 16 laps remaining in the Grand Prix, and we're still yet to get to the third round of stops, which could be coming. Some of them will be doing it at the single digits amount of laps left, if you know what I mean, of course. So maybe some will do it with around 9 laps to go, some will probably pit with 8 laps remaining, so that will be very interesting to see how that one works out. Verne still stuck behind Magnussen. They've both kept pretty much the same gap from the last time we checked on these guys, and it looks like there's not going to be much movement at this stage, and you'll have to hope that possibly during the third round of pit stops they can try and get a jump on Magnussen if he can, as they make their way around through these section of corners. And around they go, as meantime Alonso really struggling to gain onto these guys. He's just been struggling all weekend, he must be sad, and it looks like at this stage he's going to be losing even more points to Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. And as a result, if it stays like this, the gap will be 21 points between him, with Hamilton having a golden opportunity to clinch the championship next weekend at Fuji. So that's that then really, as Alonso makes his way round turn 2, heading down the straight before approaching the hairpin. And Alonso now then still leading the way, still currently in 11th place, as they will go up now then towards the hairpin. Around the right-hander he goes as Alonso comes off the turn before approaching the chicane. And Alonso in 11th for the moment, as they will now approach the bus stop chicane on the track now. Then round the left-hander goes Fernando Alonso, as he will soon approach the next right-hander on the track. And again, just struggling still to try and close up onto Ocon in front of him at this stage as they make their way up the hill towards the the next section of corners on the track. And excuse me, as I'm starting to get a little bit of a croaky voice. I can't have that when I'm about to commentate a little bit later on for AOR, so sorry about that if you just heard me coughing a little bit. I think I've started to get a little bit of a croaky voice as Giovinazzi's put a lap on, I think it was Jones, he put a lap on there down the pit straight, and the gap between them, let's have a look. Is it still 2.1 or is it reduced a little bit? It's increased actually, 2.3. So into the pits comes Kimi Räikkönen. So Räikkönen is the first to make a third stop of the afternoon, and he's now fueled to the end of the Grand Prix. So Räikkönen into the pits, and let's see where Kimi is going to rejoin then after this pit stop. And it is a 10.7 second stop from the Suomi mechanics as the Martini mechanics get ready for Ocon, who's just come into the pits. Where's Räikkönen going to be joining after the stop as he comes out of the pit lane? And Räikkönen is going to rejoin in 11th position. That's where the Finn rejoins. There's Ocon in the pits as Martini finishes stop as they come trundling down pit lane. As Wehrlein is now into the pits himself. And let's see where Ocon rejoins. He rejoins in 16th place, just behind Kevin Magnussen, who's yet to stop. Ocon should be able to get a run him down the straight. Wehrlein into the pits himself, as he will now come out of the pit lane. And I do apologise for the drop of frames, as now Wehrlein will flick off the pit limiter. And where's he going to rejoin in after the stop? And he rejoins in 18th position. That's where the German rejoins then, and Ocon was able to get Magnussen in the end, so he rejoins in 15th place. There's a little bit of defensive work just in case Magnussen tries to pull a move into the chicane, which he does, so he holds on to the place. As meantime now then, what's going on further forward? Hülkenberg and Dixon is into the pits, as is Lewis Hamilton. Ricciardo is pitting at the end of the lap he's on. Hamilton having to wait. No, he didn't actually. Luckily, perfect timing there. Didn't get held up. Hülkenberg into the pits there. So Hamilton finishes off his pit stop. Where's he going to rejoin then? As he'll flick off the pit limiter in a little bit. And Hamilton is going to rejoin in 5th position. So there is where Lewis Hamilton rejoins, as he just rejoins the track. He rejoins behind Grosjean, who's yet to stop. As Hülkenberg finishes his stop, and he's going to rejoin in 8th position. So at this stage the podium's still looking good for Nico Hülkenberg, and we join just in front of Alonso there, and Alonso is pitting at the end of this lap. Will Alonso in fact try and get a run on Nico Hülkenberg and potentially try and help out Antonio Giovinazzi if he can? Alonso tries to have a look at Hülkenberg, but it looks like Hülkenberg is going to cover the outside and hold off Alonso at this stage. Alonso, they're in the slipstream. He's going to try and possibly have a look to the inside into the hairpin. Nope. Hülkenberg covers him off and holds on to the place as a result. So that's that for them really. And sorry about the drop of frames, as Magnussen is into the pits for his scheduled stop. So Magnussen in for Suomi, as he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel himself. To get himself to the end of the Grand Prix. Meantime, Ricciardo we need to look at. Here he is. Ricciardo is coming into the pits now then for his scheduled stop. And he will flick off the pit limiter in a little bit. Flick on the pit limiter, as it looks like Suomi have just finished serving Kevin Magnussen's car. As Ricciardo pulls into his box. And this is all looking good for him to take a 3rd consecutive victory this season. And he finishes his pit stop, and it's a 10-second stop exactly for Daniel Ricciardo. And let's see where he will rejoin, as Giovinazzi is now into the pits. So let's see then. Ricciardo is going to rejoin in 2nd behind Sebastian Vettel, who's yet to make a stop, of course. So Ricciardo's still out in the lead in front of Hamilton effectively. Giovinazzi finishes his stop. Let's see where the Italian will rejoin. And again, I apologise for the drop of frames. And Sainz into the pits himself, looking to get some points for Shadow if he can. And where is Gio going to rejoin then? He's going to rejoin in 5th position. So that's where he rejoins. He rejoins just in front of Nico Hülkenberg. And in fact, he has jumped him. I've just realised that Giovinazzi has jumped Hülkenberg into the pits. As a result of Alonso giving him a little bit of a helping hand, Giovinazzi has leapfrogged Hülkenberg, and as a result means that he will be on the podium. But Hülkenberg having none of it. Can he try and get him back into the hairpin? He's not close enough. Alonso into the pits for Etihad, just for anybody who wants to know. Verstappen's yet to make a stop, but he's currently up in 7th place as Alonso finishes his stop. Where's he going to rejoin? And he rejoins in 15th position. Vernon into the pits for GRM, so he's looking to try and get the jump on Magnussen if he can. I think he's already just made a stop, I think, from what I can remember. So Vernon now then finishes the stop, a 9.5 second stop for Jean-Luc Vergne. And where is he going to rejoin now then? As he will soon flick off the pit limiter, and he rejoins in 17th position. And he does get in front of Magnussen, so he's finally got the jump on him, and Vergne comes out in front of Kevin Magnussen only for some lowly positions. Vettel is pitting at the end of the stop, so Ricciardo will be released, providing he can get by on that traffic, of course, that's in front of him. Vettel round the right-hander, and into the pits comes Sebastian Vettel for his 3rd and final stop of the afternoon, as he will flick on the pit limiter, as it looks like Grosjean's also getting ready for a pit stop. So EMR and Bud Light Lime preparing for their guys to come into the pits, as they will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. And Ricciardo now started lap 44 of 55, 12 laps remaining for Daniel Ricciardo. 10.3 second stop for Vettel. And where is he going to rejoin? Grosjean into the pits himself, and through goes Giovinazzi, and through will go Hülkenberg, and Vettel will still rejoin, I think, comfortably in 5th position, still in front of Räikkönen, so still in 5th for Sebastian Vettel, and Räikkönen a little bit further back, so in fact Vettel's put a little bit more of a gap on Kimi Räikkönen. Grosjean rejoins still behind Räikkönen in 7th, but he's a little bit more closer now to the fence as he looks to try and grab 6th from his former Schmidt Racing Incorporated teammate when that team was around back in season 1. Bottas and Verstappen and Vandoorne, those guys were into the pits, as that looks like Leclerc is coming to the pits himself. It is Leclerc, so he's in for Shadow Mercedes. And where is Vandoorne going to rejoin as he flicks off the pit limiter? And Vandoorne is going to rejoin in 13th position, so that's where Vandoorne rejoins as he comes out of the pit lane. So P13 for the Belgian, as Leclerc finishes his stop, and he's going to rejoin in 16th, just behind Verline. He's already made a stop, so it looks like those two are going to fight it out for 15th place. Leclerc now getting a rhythm now then on Pascal Verline. Can he try and grab 15th from the German? He's in the slipstream. He's going to look to the inside. Can he pull the move off as they go side by side with each other? And Verline might have the edge unless Leclerc can try and late break him into the hairpin. He's going to look to the inside into the hairpin. Verline trying to hang it around the outside, which he does. So Verline holding on to 15th as a result from Charles Leclerc. Can Leclerc possibly get him into the bus stop chicane? It doesn't look like he's close enough. So Verline holds on to the place as a result. So that's that for him, really. As Ricciardo currently leads the way at the moment, and that's that really as far as they're concerned as they come out the hairpin. And as you can see, Ricciardo currently lead the way at this stage of the race, and in towards the bus stop chicane we will go. And as you can see, Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage, and looking good to get win number 3 of this season. Hamilton a little bit far behind, but not anywhere near at this stage. Meantime, Vettel has caught up now to the back of these two, of Hülkenberg and Giovinazzi, and looks to try and make some moves. Meantime, Grosjean and Räikkönen trying to lap that person. Grosjean looked like he wanted to try and take full advantage, but was unable to, and as a result, Grosjean stays behind Räikkönen as a result, and stays where he is at this stage. Sainz looking good to get some points. Alonso looking like he's going to lose more time to Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship, and at the moment it looks like Hamilton has a golden opportunity to take the Drivers' Championship at Fuji next weekend, if it stays like this, of course. So that's that really. He'll still have a golden opportunity either way, even if he retires, and even if he does retire, and and Alonso gets into the points. But even at that point, you have to say it'll be a little bit tougher for Hamilton to wrap it up at Fuji. So at the moment, things stand. Hamilton looking good to possibly win the championship next weekend at Fuji if it stays like this. Ricciardo now in a start at lap 46 of 55, so 10 laps to go for Daniel Ricciardo in the GRM as he now goes around turns 1 and 2 on the track, and looking good for 3 wins in a row if it stays like this now then. Heading down the long straight now then before approaching the hairpin. And Ricciardo still leading the way at this stage. Up towards the hairpin he will go. And now into the hairpin goes Daniel Ricciardo as he uses a little bit of curb on the outside. Up towards the bus stop chicane we will go as Ricciardo continues to lead the way. Hamilton a little bit further back, but I think he'll be happy to just settle for second place in this race, knowing that he'll still have a golden opportunity to grab the championship next weekend at Fuji, as now they make their way around the bus stop chicane around the right and then into the left-hander we go, as he will make his way up the hill towards the right left chicane on the track, the flat out right left chicane around the right, and then into the left-hander we go, and then into these next section of corners. Then we'll go Hamilton, and we'll go Hamilton. He will still try and give it his best shot possibly if he can to try and chase down Ricciardo, but I think at this stage he'll probably would prefer to probably settle down and just hold on to this second place if he can. He's still got a big lead in front of Giovinazzi, so it looks like second looks to be in the bag for the championship leader. Vettel trying to chase down Hülkenberg if he can and look to try and grab fourth, so Vettel looking to try and gain some more points by the end of the race if he can, as they come up now then towards the double left-hander on the track. So through the left and then into the right-hander. We'll have a look and see in a little bit what the gap is like between Hülkenberg and Vettel at this stage of the race. Round the left-hander we go before approaching the final before approaching now the final 4 turns on the track. Round the left-hander and then into the final 3 turns they will go, and let's see what the gap is like between Vettel and Hülkenberg. As we go down the pit straight, and the gap between them is now, let's have a look, as we have now 9 laps remaining for Daniel Ricciardo. Turn 1, the gap between them is now, let's have a look, through turn 2, the gap being 2.3 seconds. It took a while for that to process, but the gap now 2.3 seconds between the 2 EMR teammates of Hülkenberg and Vettel. So that's that for them really. Massa now would have quite a sizable gap now in front of Ocon, and looking good to get hold of the knife, but he would have possibly preferred it if he was able to get points in this Grand Prix, but it looks like it's not going to go the Brazilians' way this time. By Alonso trying his best to hold up, to try and get up to Ocon, to try and ease the pain of what has been a frustrating weekend for the 3-time champion, but it looks like that's not going to be the case at this stage, and that will be that then really. As here's Hamilton as he rounds the right-hander using the curb on the outside before approaching the double left-hander. Around he will go around the section of corners through the left and then into the right, using the curb on the outside as they will now approach these next section of corners. Around the final few turns we go. Hamilton still in second at this stage, and looking to hold on to second at the moment at this stage of the race. Coming off the turn round the left, then into the right-hander before approaching the left again. And Hamilton now then, let's see what the gap is like between him and Ricciardo at this stage now then. Just for a note of course, 8 laps remaining for Daniel Ricciardo. We're now on lap 48 of 55 here at Korea, and it's 6.8 seconds between Ricciardo and Hamilton, so quite a huge gap now then, and it looks like Ricciardo, unless things go wrong, is looking good for 3 wins in a row. And the gap between Vettel and Hülkenberg, let's have a look as they make their way into the first 2 turns on the track. Around the left and then into the flat out turn 2 we go. 2.3 seconds the gap between Vettel and Hülkenberg at this stage. Meantime, Sainz coming up to traffic. He's not that far behind Räikkönen, but Räikkönen has already just disposed of the traffic, so it looks like Sainz won't be able to get up close to the back of Kimi Räikkönen at the end of the Grand Prix. So Räikkönen still possibly looking good, perhaps to get 7th place in this race, only taking 2 points. And it looks like GRM will close them up a little bit more in the Constructors' Championship, as the pair of them fight for 5th, it seems, in that championship, as they now make their way down towards the hairpin on the track. Round the right-hander we go, as Räikkönen uses the curb on the outside, heading down the straight before approaching the bus stop chicane. As Sainz, as you can see in the background, putting a lap on, I think that was Jones, he was about to put a lap on there then. Down the straight we go, Räikkönen, sparks coming off the back of the car. We've just passed the 6 o'clock mark, in fact we've passed it 6 minutes ago, so just under 2 hours until the AOL race at Austria. Round the bus stop chicane we go, as Räikkönen will go up the hill towards the flat out right and left hander, or down towards the flat out right and left hander now they're on the track, and trying to look good for 7th place at the moment at this stage of the race, as they will now approach the right hander. Out of the turn we go before approaching the double left hander now then, in towards the section of corners we go, and so now around we go, around the left and then through the right. Heading out of the turn we go now then before approaching the left-hander. And Räikkönen currently 7th and looking to get some more points, but it looks like, and in fact, I've only just noticed this in fact, Räikkönen is 7th, and I've only just noticed that Grosjean has actually passed him for 6th place. So unseen by the cameras, Grosjean has actually passed Räikkönen. And I think at this stage, I think Grosjean will actually leap up to 4th in the Drivers' Championship if it stays like this, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. So that is how it will look at this stage, and we're dropping some more frames. I do apologise for that. As we go down the long straight with a few laps to go, we're now into the closing stages of this Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam. It's not been a very interesting race, it must be said, so I do apologise for anybody who's sat through this being bored, but if you have sat through this, then I fully respect you for that, because it has been not the best race, it must be said, in terms of action, and it looks like now everybody is kind of settled down into a rhythm for the remainder of this Grand Prix, as Vettel now heads up towards the flat out right and left-hander on the track, as it looks like Hülkenberg might be starting to open up the gap a little bit now between himself and teammate Vettel, so it looks like Hülkenberg might just do enough to hold on to 4th at this stage of the Grand Prix, as Vettel now makes his way round the right-hander and then up towards the double left-hander he will go, and heading through the section of corners. And meantime, Giovinazzi now starting to open up the gap between himself and Hülkenberg, as things look good for the Italian to get a podium here at Korea, and that will help him and the team out in terms of trying to get second in the Constructors' Championship, as Ricciardo is now on lap 50 of 55, so 6 laps remaining for Daniel Ricciardo, and so we're getting close towards the end of the Grand Prix. Well, look and see what the gap is like anyway between Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg at this stage as they go around turns 1 and 2 on the track. And let's see now, then the gap is 2.8 seconds. That's how it will look between the pair, then 2.6 the gap between Hülkenberg and Vettel at this stage. So just to confirm that Hülkenberg has opened up the gap between himself and Sebastian Vettel in this race. So it looks like it's going to be 4th and 5th for the two EMRs and 3rd and 4th. Sorry, 3rd and 6th for the Bud Light Limes in this race. And so that will be that for them really. Ricciardo currently leading the way as he continues to still open up the gap a little bit, but he can just possibly afford to put his legs up really and just have a snack in the cockpit, because he's got such quite an astounding lead in front of Lewis Hamilton, his future teammate for next season. And obviously for GLM it will be a big loss for Ricciardo to leave the team at the end of the season, but they hope that with their new lineup they can still be challenging next season if they can, and they'll be hoping to do that of course, and they'll be looking to try and get consistency on their side for next season of course. So that'll be that then really, as Ricciardo now then makes his way round the right-hander and then into the left-hander, heading down the pit straight as he now starts lap 51 of 55, so 5 laps to go for Daniel Ricciardo in this Korean Grand Prix as he now makes his way into turns 1 and 2 on the track. And so far Ricciardo just leading comfortably and in front at this stage, as he's got a 6.8 second lead in front of Lewis Hamilton at the moment, and all things looking good for Ricciardo to make it 3 wins in a row. As meantime, as the gap between Giovinazzi and Hülkenberg possibly opened up now then, as they made their way into the first couple of corners on the track through turn 1, and the gap being, let's have a look, and 3.1 seconds, so a little bit more of a gap he's opened up there at that point. Here's Grosjean looking quite solid in 6th place. Would have preferred a better position, of course, but he'll probably have to make do with 6th. If that's the case, at least he's helping the team out in terms of constructor points. Same with Giovinazzi as well. And at this stage, I think he'll actually overtake Vettel in the Drivers' Championship if it stays like this. So, because those two were tied up in the Drivers, so I think Giovinazzi will actually leapfrog in front of Vettel in the Drivers' Championship if it remains like this at the moment. As they now make their way down the pit straight towards the chicane. And into the chicane we go now then on the track. Grosjean trying to just maintain this pace towards the checkered flag. Just hold on to 6th place. Räikkönen down to 7th, and it looks like it's just going to be 2 championship points for the Iceman, and it looks like he might lose 4th in the Drivers' Championship to Romain Grosjean as a result if it just stays like this now then, as they go down towards the right and left-hander, the flat-out right and left-hander. As meantime, Alonso is getting onto Ocon. It seems clear this traffic has helped him out a little bit, but still he's not within the slipstream range, and it looks like it's just going to be a terrible weekend as a whole for Fernando Alonso as he tries to get up to try and lap Ed Jones in front of him at this stage. Sorry, Scott Dixon, he's already lapped Jones, I do apologise. Around these section of corners now then we go, as they make their way up towards the right-hander, as they use the curb on the left-hand side there then, as they make their way up towards the double left-hander on the track. So around these section of corners we will go, around the right-hander, using the curb on the outside before approaching the left-hander. And now heading in towards the right-hander we will go. And Alonso still trying his best to try and get out of Ocon, but Ocon's starting to stretch the gap a little bit now. Alonso's being held up by Dixon, the piece of traffic that's in front of him at this stage. So not all good for Fernando Alonso in this Grand Prix, and in fact this weekend couldn't have gone badly for him, and he'll want to move on to Fuji next weekend to try and save his championship hopes. And as Lewis Hamilton will look to have a 21-point lead going into the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend. So that will be that then, really, as now Ricciardo makes his way around the left and then into the right-hander, and then he will approach these next section of corners on the track before approaching the final few turns. And Ricciardo about to start lap 53 or 55, so we'll have 3 laps to go. Once he crosses the line around the final 3 turns, then goes the Aussie, as he now makes his way around the left-hander, heading down the pit straight. And Ricciardo now starts lap 53 or 55 in this Grand Prix, so 3 laps remaining for Daniel Ricciardo in this Korean Grand Prix. Around turn 2 he goes, and possibly now just trying to get it to the end of the Grand Prix. And meantime, Vettel looking lowly now in 5th place, and looks like it's going to be 5th for the German, as he will possibly now lose the place to Giovinazzi in the Drivers' Championship, but at least he's scoring points after having his points taken away in Italy due to his disqualification for causing that crash, causing that pile-up at Italy last weekend, which involved him punting both Alonso and Hamilton at the first chicane. So that'll be that, really, as they make their way down the long straight before approaching turn number 3 on the track. So up towards turn 3 we will go, and they go up now then towards the hairpin as they come off the turn using the curb on the outside before they approach the bus stop. And Hülkenberg still currently 4th at the moment, but that's pretty much that then, really, as they will now approach the right-hander, and around the left-hander we will go, as they use a little bit of the curb on the outside going up the hill towards the flat-out right and left-hander on the track. And in towards these next section of corners we will go, as they will now approach the right-hander. And now Hülkenberg approaches the double left-hander, and he looks solid enough at the moment for 4th place, and still looking quite strong for 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. The last time he finished 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, of course, was back in Season 2 when he was part of AMP, and looks like he could be doing the job this season as well. But still a couple of races left, you never know. Ricciardo now in on his penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. He's now on lap 54-55 here at Yeongam, and at the moment he's just been on a super roll, it must be said, over these last few weekends, and it seems that nobody's been able to stop the Australian towards the back end of the season. Obviously it's a little bit too late now for Ricciardo to mount a Championship 5, but if he was there at the beginning of the season, then who knows really? Who really knows what Ricciardo could have done in that GLM? So that's that really, as they come out of the chicane now. They're heading up the hill towards the flat out right and left-hander now. Then heading down the hill towards the right and then into the left-hander, and then in towards these next section of corners. He will go on the track as he goes around the 90-degree right-hander, using all the curb on the outside before approaching the double left-hander. So all things looking good for Ricciardo at the moment in this Grand Prix. Ocon closing back up a bit now to Massa, but I think it's all but too late, and I think Massa will do enough to hold on to 9th place. But as mentioned, I think a few laps ago he would have possibly preferred it if he got some more points to the 1 point he's currently got in the Drivers' Championship. But meantime, here's Daniel Ricciardo coming around the final few turns as he heads down the pit straight, and Daniel Ricciardo is about to start his final lap here at Yeongam. It's been a very brilliant race for Daniel Ricciardo. He started in 3rd place, was able to get the jump on Vettel at the start to get to 2nd, was able to keep up with Hamilton in the opening laps, and due to Hamilton being held up in the pits, he took full advantage and was able to get the jump on him into the pits, and was able to open up a gap at that point. And from that point, no one has been able to stop the Australian. If he could just keep this up, he's looking good to get his 6th career victory and his 3rd consecutive victory of the season. And this will definitely help out GRM in their battle with Suomi in the Constructors' Championship for 5th place. And well, that is definitely that's for sure. As Ricciardo now then will come up now towards the bus stop chicane, as he just cruises around for the final time. He's got a big enough lead, he can afford to just lift off the gas just a little bit, and he'll still end up with the victory here today at the Korean Grand Prix at Yeongam. And it's just been the fantastic race, the dream race Ricciardo has been looking for here at Yeongam. Ocon, as mentioned, getting up close, but I've mentioned Massa looking strong for 9th. Alonso, he's going to lose more points to Hamilton as a result, and it will leave Hamilton with a golden opportunity to wrap up the championship next weekend at Fuji. So all things falling into place for Lewis Hamilton this season, in order for him to finally win a Drivers' Championship that he's been craving for in IFMC. And will he be able to do it next weekend? We will wait and see. But meantime, here's Daniel Ricciardo, who's coming up now towards the final few turns on the track. And it has been just a perfect race for Danny Rick. He will come up now towards the final 3 turns, around the final few corners, and he's just been on a roll of form recently around the final corner, and it's going to be Daniel Ricciardo who wins the Korean Grand Prix. Congratulations to him and the Georgia Motorsport team. He even sets the fastest lap as well. Well done to Danny Rick, and a well-deserved victory for the Aussie. 3 in a row for GLM. Lewis Hamilton crossed the line in 2nd. It's going to be Antonio Giovinazzi who's going to round off the podium in 3rd place in the Bud Light line to get himself back on the podium. The young Italian is going to cross the line in 3rd place. A brilliant race for Antonio Giovinazzi. 4th place will go to Nico Hülkenberg in the EMR. 5th place for Sebastian Vettel in the other EMR. So 4th and 5th for the East Midlands based team. It's going to be 6th for Romain Grosjean, which I think will lift him above Kimi Räikkönen in the Drivers' Championship. I could be wrong, but I think that is going to be the case. Grosjean will cross the line in 6th. Räikkönen is going to cross the line in 7th position in the end. And Carlos Sainz Jr. finally getting some points for Shadow to cross the line in 8th place, getting the team's first points, I think, since Spain, back since the Spanish Grand Prix a load of races ago. So P8 for Carlos Sainz Jr. 9th will go to Felipe Massa. 10th for Esteban Ocon. 11th will only go to Fernando Alonso in the end, which means that Hamilton has a golden opportunity to wrap up the championship next weekend at Fuji. Now he has a 21-point lead in front of Fernando Alonso. Max Verstappen will cross the line in 12th. Scott Dixon 19th and a lap down from these guys. Stoffel Vandoorne is going to be 13th in the end in the AMP. 14th for Valtteri Bottas. A disappointing weekend for El Dorado as a whole. So that's that for him really. Pascal Wehrlein is going to cross the line in 15th position in the AMP. It's going to be 16th for Charles Leclerc. And 17th will go Jean Verne, not really able to recover after what happened to him earlier on in the race. So P17 for Verne, and it's going to be 18th for Kevin Magnussen in the end there then. And that will do it in terms of all the finishes. He crosses the line for P18 then. And there you have it then, guys. That has been it from the race. In the end, Daniel Ricciardo is the winner here at the not very interesting Korean Grand Prix, but it's 3 in a row for the Aussie, and with the result as it is, Hamilton has a golden opportunity to wrap up the championship next weekend at Fuji. So there you have it then, guys. After all of that, here's the result of the Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam. Daniel Ricciardo won the race with Lewis Hamilton 2nd, Antonio Giovinazzi 3rd, Nico Hülkenberg 4th, Sebastian Vettel 5th, Romain Grosjean 6th, Kimi Räikkönen 7th, Carlos Sainz Jr. 8th, Felipe Massa 9th, Esteban Ocon 10th, Fernando Alonso 11th, Max Verstappen 12th, Stoffel Vandoorne 13th, Valtteri Bottas in 14th. If we scroll down the rest of the field, is Pascal Wehrlein 15th, Charles Leclerc 16th, Jean Verne 17th, Kevin Magnussen 18th, Scott Dixon 19th, Ed Jones the last of the finishes in 20th, with Sergio Pérez and Brendon Hartley failing to finish due to crashing out at different places on the track. So let's see who set the fastest lap of the race then, and of course it was Daniel Ricciardo with a 1 minute 42.215 after setting it on the final lap of the race. He was 14 thousandths quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the end there then. And that is that then. So there you have it then, guys. That has been it from the Korean Grand Prix here at Yeongam. I hope you've enjoyed it. It has been a very exciting race here at Yeongam, and hopefully, well, not actually, no, it's not been a very exciting race. I don't know what I'm saying. That's usually my usual speech, but it's not been a very interesting race, I should have said. But still, it has given us some indications of what to expect next weekend. 3 in a row for Ricciardo, and Hamilton with a golden opportunity to wrap it up next weekend. But that has been it then, guys, for this live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you then, guys, next weekend at another new event. This time at the Fuji Speedway for the running of the Japanese Grand Prix. Thanks to them having a shareholding agreement with Suzuka. So we'll be here for the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend at Fuji Speedway. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. The podium for the top class is coming your way just after this. The AOR race is coming your way in just over 1.5 hours' time. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much for watching. I'm F1, and I'll see you guys next weekend at the Japanese Grand Prix at Fuji Speedway. But will Lewis Hamilton wrap up the championship next weekend? That is the question. But until then, guys, I've been F1, and I'll see you guys next weekend at Fuji. Until then, take care and enjoy the podium.